Good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to be here. I'd like to thank you all for joining us via Zoom this morning. My name is Gretchen Stallings, and I'm the Executive Director at Volunteer New Hampshire. Excited to gather together in this format to kick off 3 days of training opportunities. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind everyone that this session is being recorded and that we will be sharing it with all of the registered guests of the conference. This will also be the case with all of the Governor's Conference sessions. We're so excited that you've chosen to join us virtually this year. As you all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has led to many changes, including this event's transition to being online. We do hope to resume next year with an in-person conference, but looking on the bright side, we're grateful for the opportunity to reimagine what this conference can be. For those of you who are just getting to know us, Volunteer New Hampshire works to promote the ethic of service in our state. Some of our activities include serving as a resource for all national service initiatives, while especially administering our 7, soon to be 9, National Service New Hampshire AmeriCorps state programs. In addition, we provide information and resources to volunteers and volunteer programming through events like this one, online, through our website, through Get Connected, our volunteer matching database, and we also really work to celebrate the volunteers and volunteer champions that strengthen our communities in New Hampshire through their service. This conference would not be possible without a lot of support from the community, including our very, very generous sponsors. To that end, I'd like to acknowledge our visionary sponsors, Normando Associates, the New Hampshire Elks Association, and Eastern Bank. We're really grateful for the support that they've provided. We'd especially want to thank our visionary sponsor, Tufts Health Plan Foundation. With this today is Nora Moreno-Cargi, President of the Tufts Health Plan Foundation.
Thank you, Michaela, Gretchen, so much for that introduction. I want to thank you, Governor Sununu, and the team at Volunteer New Hampshire who have brought us all together today. On behalf of my colleagues at Tufts Health Freedom Plan, Jerry Vaughn in particular, our leader there, Tufts Health Plan, and our foundation, thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you do. Volunteers are the heart and soul of what makes our communities work. So to invest in them and developing and strengthening their networks, their talents, and celebrating volunteerism through this event is so important. Now more than ever, volunteers play a critical role in creating vibrant, thriving communities. And as we've seen, the needs in our communities evolve and the new challenges that are emerging, volunteers are stepping up and stepping in. We are proud of our company's strong culture of volunteerism. We have seen great photos of employees in production at the gardens of the New Hampshire Food Bank, the Walk to End Alzheimer's in Manchester, and the volunteer department and Women's Auxiliary in Stratham, and also the Revived Recovery Center. All of these opportunities are opportunities to engage volunteers in meaningful and impactful ways. In all of those images, when I saw these photos, what occurred to me is that all of the volunteers were smiling. And it made me understand intuitively that not only are they nurturing our communities, but that through engagement, they are nurturing themselves. So thank you for this next 3 days, for investing time and energy into this work and into our communities. We hope this conference helps you to sharpen your skills, to make new connections, and most importantly, to be reminded of how important you are in the network of what makes communities great places to grow up and grow old. Have a great day, and the next 2 days, may they be beneficial and profitable to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nora. Really appreciate your words and grateful that you could join us today. Good morning, everyone. I'm Larissa Striga. I am Director of Programs for Campus Compact for New Hampshire. And I've also had the pleasure of serving as the conference chair this year, along with Michaela and an incredible planning team. We are thrilled to bring you this series of learning opportunities to support you in strengthening volunteer programs and organizations throughout our beautiful state, because volunteers make our communities better. I want to thank the Planning Committee for their commitment to planning a successful event, for their great energy as we pivoted to an online platform, and for all the laughs along the way. It has been an honor to collaborate with all of you. Now it is my pleasure to introduce today's keynote speaker, Bryan Bessette. Bryan is passionate about bringing diverse people together to learn from one another and translate ideas and beliefs into beneficial action. He is president and executive director of the Freedom Cafe, a nonprofit specialty cafe dedicated to ending human trafficking and the commercial exploitation of all people. It is located on the border of the University of New Hampshire campus in Durham. Bryan, welcome and thank you for being with us today.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much, Larissa. Thank you everyone for joining this morning, and thank you to the whole team for this incredible honor to be able to present this morning. As you shared as well, the pivot into this virtual experience it's amazing to see this all come together and to see such a great community of folks out this morning. Thanks to everyone who is attending and those who will be joining in the rest of the conference. So this morning, I want to talk about the power of giving power away, finding fit to maximize volunteer and organization impact. I think you've all read the opening bit there, what it's about. Just want to jump right in. So first, as a nonprofit, people are our greatest asset, and clear communication of our mission and our need inspires involvement among the community, and empowering management practices are what cultivate and sustain that involvement. And as I've already looked at so many of the responses to our icebreaker question, and it's clear that many of you have really experienced empowering environments, and I think further on in our talk this morning, we'll collect some of those thoughts and hopefully get you an outline to think about how you can continue to facilitate and foster an empowering environment in your organization. So sort of a disclaimer, I guess, at the beginning here, as we consider the topic of empowerment, there are so many areas on which we could focus, including personal empowerment, policy reform, and perhaps really fitting at the moment could be the development of a diversity and inclusion initiative. And so hopefully some of the tools will help in those areas as well. But our focus, my goal this morning, is to invite you to consider the culture of your organization and the power each of us holds as leaders to place power into our teams, to enable each person to bring their intelligence, their spirit, their creativity, their unique potential to the work that we all do together. So to get started, I want to do a little more engaging. I want to look at the breadth of knowledge and expertise among our group today. All of us are invited to take a short crowdsourcing poll. Each of the 10 questions in the poll are challenges or problems that I need help solving. I'm hoping that you could respond to each one of those and let me know in each scenario if you, one, have experience with this issue and could easily help. Two, could help as a last resort, maybe with the assistance of Google or YouTube instructions. And three, count me out. I have no idea how to help. So let's take 90 seconds to take this poll together. So now, if you have finished voting, just scroll through and let's take a look really quickly at some of the responses. So more just look at the sliders here and see how many people are available in our community to help with assistance, and which questions really people are like, I have no idea how to assist. We won't focus on each of the questions. My goal really is for us to see the amazing diversity among our community, the wisdom that we can all access when we acknowledge a need and invite others to contribute. If there's a problem that you can't solve, there's always people around us. As I said, people are our greatest asset. So, as I mentioned earlier, an empowering culture and management strategy or structure is necessary to engage and sustain the involvement and energy toward our mission. Empowerment means literally to put power into. It also can mean to draw energy and enthusiasm out from. There's an organization that I helped to co-found and now direct, the Freedom Cafe, really has always been bigger than its budget and its core team might imply. We had the fortunate opportunity to start up on the fringe of the University of New Hampshire among a community that's just bursting with passion to impact the world and an eager desire to test their developing skills and visions. Before we even started the organization, we began to discover the incredible potential of our community when we were raising funds to support a project in Nepal that would serve survivors of bonded slavery. To support our team of students in their travels and provide funds for a water filtration system and microeconomic loans in the form of goats for the folks in Nepal, a group of students connected with local restaurants and bars. We set up times to have a donation station where customers were invited to donate the cost of a drink to support the project. We raised $3,500 that night. And that experience really opened our eyes to the generosity and the willingness of our community to get engaged in social issues and to support the community and just to meet a real need. Something that we really only understood later is how much the way we asked impacted our results. The invitation was clear. One more for Nepal. Slavery still exists, and by donating the cost of a drink, you can support survivors of bonded slavery and help end it. By communicating a clear need and creating an accessible and attainable opportunity to help, we empowered our local community to take action. We also discovered that it's a lot easier for people to take action when that action is connected directly to something that they are already doing. Folks were already out buying drinks, so buying one more for Nepal was accessible and reasonable for each individual to fulfill. Donations that night ranged from $1 to $100 based on each person's ability. But every amount in that range was normal and could be expected by guests ordering drinks that evening. So 3 qualities that we learned from that project became core to our volunteer program and to the way that we seek to engage others in our mission to end human trafficking. We focus a lot of attention on creating clear, accessible, and attainable volunteer roles and a clear, accessible, and attainable pathway of involvement for participants to further engage in our mission. Oftentimes, we'll see someone come and visit the cafe and enjoy a drink, and while they're there, they're invited to support a project to end human trafficking. They might hear about and maybe attend one of our weekly Perform for Freedom events or a conscious consumer educational program, learning how so many items that are bought and consumed are connected to human trafficking and forced labor. Some people choose to get involved as a volunteer. Many start out serving as what we call a cafe assistant for a couple of hours a week. Sometimes these volunteers become really passionate about the mission. Other times they're much more interested in the cafe drinks and beverages, but some of those volunteers really get excited about doing research and learning more and discover that they have an interest in really communicating that mission. And so we're able to provide that pathway for them to take on roles in research and outreach and communications. I want to share a couple of examples from our community. One young person, Caroline, joined us for a one-time week-long program project we called that's called the United Nations Gift Box. We hosted it at the University of New Hampshire. The project is intended to raise large-scale awareness of human trafficking through a walk-in piece of public art. Carolyn was a member of UNH's Amnesty International Student Group, and she got involved as a team captain for the week. Following that program, she started bringing the Freedom Cafe's outreach team in to speak and discuss issues of human trafficking with her student organization. After being trained to serve as an advocate during the United Nations Gift Box project, Carolyn decided that she wanted to take on a 2-hour-a-week volunteer role. And over the course of 3 years, she moved from working as a cafe assistant to mentoring new volunteers, to supporting fundraising projects, to getting involved in our outreach team. As an occupational therapy major, Carolyn found numerous ways to intersect her coursework with research on human trafficking. And it was really cool. In her final year at the university as a grad student, she became a member of our outreach team and a presenter not only with the Freedom Cafe, but with the New Hampshire Human Trafficking Collaborative Task Force, bringing human trafficking 101 programs to young people across the state in high schools and classrooms. So that's sort of that pathway of involvement and empowerment. I want to talk about another volunteer, Rachel. Rachel was invited by a friend to our Perform for Freedom open mic night, where she was introduced to the Freedom Cafe community and to our mission. Upon hearing the very first invitation to get involved in the volunteer team, Rachel signed on as a cafe assistant. She was passionate about the mission from the very beginning, and she connected with a couple of other volunteers and helped co-found, this is early on in our organization, helped co-found our outreach team. With the guidance and training from our staff, the group prepared 3 seminars on the topic of human trafficking. Another volunteer, Larissa, connected with the University of New Hampshire's Res Life to present these seminar opportunities. 2 months later, the group had given 8 presentations in residence halls, a couple of classrooms, including one 200+ student justice lecture class. The connections that were made through these events have fostered long-term connections and support and collaboration with the university and helped inspire so many other folks to get involved with our organization. And Rachel went on to develop our very first conscious consumer guide to chocolate, which you can see in the background. She helped to co-write a 50-page volunteer orientation manual to specifically help facilitate much more easy engagement and training for our volunteer team. So those stories, I think, really just go to show the incredible work that volunteers can do when they feel empowered. And they allowed our Freedom Cafe programs to expand exponentially beyond the years that it would have taken for our team to develop. It really improved the effectiveness of all of our programs. So early on in our organization's development, Rob Morris, the co-founder of Love 146, a nonprofit working to end child trafficking, put language to the culture of empowerment that we hoped to create at the Freedom Cafe. The Love 146 released a video, this is back 6 or 7 years ago now, that really speaks to the kind of culture that supports people getting involved. Rob in this video, Family Changes the Situation, encourage people to bring what you can do, what you love to do to the table, because really it's about family and all of us doing what we're capable of. And so that video helped inspire us in the development of our organization. And we'll have some links to those things in the final slide and things that you are given at the end of this session. So thinking about that culture of empowerment, the idea that leaders have the power to give power or to retain power and control. I personally am a huge proponent of a strengths-based approach to leadership in work. Acknowledging the reality that all of us have ways of interacting with the world that light us up, that bring us joy. For those kinds of things, it's almost no effort at all to learn, to gain skill, to invest time, and to accomplish a particular activity. And of course, we all have things that, whether we're good at them or not, sort of drain our energy and discourage us. And so again, that video, that idea of bringing what you love to do became a core idea for the Freedom Cafe and the development of the volunteer role. Sometimes the things that we call strength align with our career or with an individual's career. Some interested volunteers might be incredibly skilled at the task, at the role that they give every day through their day job, through their career. And they might really want to get involved in the organization doing exactly that, offering pro bono services to support your mission. And we have benefited so much from the pro bono support of community members who just love their jobs and love giving what they are super competent in to serve the mission. On the other hand, for others, the thing that they do all day long is the last thing in the world that they're interested in doing on their time off, maybe even on their vacation. So for those individuals, finding an opportunity for them to do something that lights them up is exactly what they're looking for, something that brings meaning, that they can invest their time in and energy when they have the choice and the additional time to give. So that's the dream. How do we get there? We're most definitely still in the process here at the Freedom Cafe, but I hope that we can lay out a few very well established by the volunteer management community tools to help facilitate that kind of fit. Empowerment essentially has two dimensions. Opportunity, providing a place in the experience, inclusion. So that's the first one, opportunity. The second one are environmental conditions that promote the full involvement of participants. So opportunity and conditions. Earlier, we were all invited to consider a situation, task, or role in which we feel genuinely empowered. So let's take a look at some of your responses. As I scrolled down through, and I'm not positive if everyone can see the chat together or if that's only to the panelists, but as I scrolled through early as you were all coming in and writing, it was great to hear the folks identify many of these conditions: the opportunity, the autonomy, space to act, trust within the environment, being given resources, feeling encouraged and appreciated in the process, feeling like you could really bring your strengths to the table and have some ability to make decisions on your own. And so I think that we all really do know what an empowering experience and environment looks like. And again, I don't know if any of this is going to be new for anyone, but I'd like to just take a little bit of time to process those key ideas and hopefully just give you something to take back and some questions to ask of your organization to help ensure or facilitate a growing sense of empowerment within an organization that may already be empowering. So, opportunity. place in the process. How compelling is your organization's mission statement? If you didn't know anything about your organization, would you be inspired to get involved? Would you feel a sense of, oh, I know how I could bring this mission to fruition? Is your organization visible? Where do folks find you? Where do they learn? How do they learn about getting involved? What is the process? What are the steps of applying and getting connected and getting an interview and getting involved in the organization? Have you developed clear, accessible, and attainable volunteer opportunities and role descriptions? What is your recruiting strategy? Do you rely only on referrals from current volunteers? Do you have opportunities to connect and target with broad and diverse potential volunteers? We all know the idea of if you build it, they will come is short-sighted and not true in the sense that whatever you build, people are going to come and get involved. But if you've done the hard work of defining roles, expectations, action steps, creating resources that will allow people to fulfill those roles and feel confident in those roles, established time frames and measurements for people to understand what success looks like, there are more than enough people who are looking for opportunities to impact the world through their strengths to support every organization that's represented here today. The first step in empowering people is to refrain from doing anything that disempowers or reduces the energy and enthusiasm one has for what they're doing. This is an area where you might look at your organization's policies and your procedures to determine if they block or promote empowerment. This is an area where understanding the dynamics of your recruiting strategy, does it open up opportunity for a diverse community, or is it sort of isolated and targeting only one kind of person or an individual with one kind of strength? Do your roles allow multiple people to get involved? What is the those resources that are available? How accessible are they for people to know that they are capable of fulfilling the task that is being asked of them? Training elements, the ability for someone to feel that sense of trust and share their thoughts and ideas with the staff and with the organization, their suggestions, what kind of reflection processes are in there. So we'll talk a little bit more about these in the next sections. So the second big piece, and this was said by numerous folks in the chat section as well, the sense of autonomy, permission, as I mentioned in the description of the talk. This is giving people a voice in the process, giving people space. When you invite someone to do what they love, you'll get a lot of ideas. Giving people permission and autonomy is this balancing act, this teetering piece. And I would say it's the crux of what I really had to learn as a volunteer manager in the work that I've done with the Freedom Cafe. Navigating this creating and cultivating of an empowering culture, and also ensuring that we're fulfilling our mission and not getting lost along the way. So I really have 3 lessons that I'd like to bring on this topic of permission and autonomy before just diving into some other ideas about that. So first, when you invite people to do what they love to do, you'll get a lot of ideas. I have an 11-year-old daughter who can fill my time with ideas for as long as I am willing to listen. it really wasn't that much different for the Freedom Cafe, especially in our early days. And as you heard stories about Carolyn and Rachel, many of those ideas propelled our organization into far greater effectiveness. But there were also a lot of ideas that produced what is called sideways energy, ideas that distracted us from our primary mission and goals. And so it's easy when you establish an empowering environment and you're listening to all of the members of the team to have great ideas come up that are not the best ideas for your organization, that are not the ideas that are ultimately going to make the greatest long-term sustainable impact on your mission, no matter how good they are. So one of the things that I really had to learn as I set about to give permission and to invite people to share what they want to do to support our work was to hone in on exactly how our organization was going to address the mission to end human trafficking, to clarify our volunteer roles, to clarify our desired outcomes. So, for example, we again are on the edge of a university. There are students that wanted to do research, and that research was catering specifically towards the interests of each involved volunteer. And as a manager, I was exhausted trying to keep up with all of the different threads of research that were going on. And we began to gradually clarify and hone in on the fact that our organization was going to research specifically the goods that are produced with child enforced labor around the world, and then to establish conscious consumer guides and opportunities for our community to understand how they can take action to support fair and ethically sourced products. So once we narrowed that down and honed that in, people who are passionate about research were still able to get involved doing what they love to do, but now it was pointed and directed towards a specific goal that would support our organization's mission. So a second lesson that I learned, to be cautious in how I say it, to not fit specifically with a negative stereotype, but of course, working with university students, there's always going to be a lack of experience and sometimes a lack of commitment. And so with the skills necessary to propel passions and implement changes, not having been developed or honed, there's a lot of work to ensure that training and routines and commitments were going to be reliable. So in order to not waste time training or starting to connect in the volunteer process with people who are not going to be committed to our mission long-term, again, because students are experimenting with dozens and dozens of different opportunities, but we want people who are going to follow through and commit and stay with our team for a long time. So all of our volunteers are now required to file an online application, to view a documentary on our mission, and submit a personal response paper prior to even attending an orientation and training. This has dramatically increased the number of applicants, but at the same time significantly decreased the number of applicants who have jumped in and gone through the process, but at the same time significantly increased the quality and the commitment of our team members. So setting a high bar, really making sure that volunteers that are getting involved are able to rise to the high expectations of your organization. It's my third lesson, and this was really the biggest and most personal for me. I hope that it can really connect with some of you who are incredibly passionate and strong leaders. Because when you give permission, you also have a responsibility to guide and protect the people that are on your team. It's especially important when you're working with people and giving them the opportunity to do what they love to do when they're working from their strengths. So that early outreach team that Rachel was on is an incredible season for us at the cafe. This group of 6 students were dubbed our development team. They spent countless hours working, researching, doing presentations, producing materials, hosting the United Nations gift box, and a larger art exhibit at the 3S Art Space in Portsmouth. Just so much work was done in that season. One of the students on that team earned the Campus Compact President's Leadership Award. The same year, the Freedom Cafe received the President's Community Partner Award for collaboration with the university. And 2 of the students on that team went on to serve in strategic social work roles, addressing human trafficking in collaboration with the New Hampshire Human Trafficking Collaborative Task Force. The thing is, they were knocking it out of the park for an entire year, and the team was exhausted. They were all doing what they love to do, but one by one in the next spring, each one of those incredibly gifted leaders stepped down. It was such a humbling and important lesson for me as a leader. The last thing that I want to do as a leader in general, and especially as someone working in the anti-human trafficking movement, is to take advantage of someone. And that experience caused me to learn to not only establish personal boundaries, but to lead others to do the same, to be intentional about building in regular times for reflection and clarification of commitments and expectations from each team member. So those 3 lessons really were kind of understanding that dynamic of building trust, of giving people permission, of setting guidelines and boundaries for success and long-term sustainable involvement. I want to wrap it up with some very practical things. Just want to leave some time for Q&A. So this is really the outline element here, where we're just going to hit some bullet points and going to give you a couple of tools and resources, and then we'll take some time to sort of chat about these experiences and your questions. I think we've already covered that leaders are gatekeepers. People support what they help to create. Participants need to feel that they have the ability to continue to shape the evolution of a group's vision over time, especially if it's already a well-established organization. Empowerment and delegation. A leader can't just give someone a task to do and assume that they feel empowered. If a leader maintains a great deal of control when they delegate, it may produce a sense of uneasiness, manipulation, unprepared. If there's too much autonomy, it can be anxiety. It could feel a lot of anxiety. If there's too much dependency, it could be exhausting. So establishing space within an environment of trust and feedback and coaching will allow people to feel a sense of empowerment. Individuals need space to accomplish goals, yet they also need guidelines for success. Communicating the process is crucial. So I want to give you 6 steps to effective delegation that are outlined in what I have found to be an incredible resource. It's not always accessible on Amazon, but I do have the details in the end notes. Volunteer management, mobilizing all the resources of the community by McCurley and Lynch. So 3 steps to effective delegation. Define assignments in terms of results. This not only removes one thing from a to-do list, but also all the tasks that will inevitably come up along the way. It allows people to choose their own adventure, to utilize the resources that they have at their disposal to get the results that are crucial to the organization, rather than simply following a checklist of do this and this and this and this and this. Define the level of control. What this means is allowing the team member to understand how much authority they have to follow their own path to achieve an outcome. There's layers and levels, a sliding scale of autonomy, from having no autonomy, just following that checklist, all to recommending ideas, to even advising ideas. So setting that level of control with volunteers. Communicate any guidelines, budgets, policies, laws, regulations that will need to be followed. So ensure that that we're going to be effective and legal and safe in our process of fulfilling the goal. 4, make resources available. Obviously, this is crucial to the success of a team, and making sure that anyone involved understands who they can talk to, how they access those resources, manuals, outlines, equipments, event planning guides, trainings, orientations. So that's where available and accessible and understanding the process for actually utilizing those resources is crucial. 5, determine the criteria for success, the timelines, the metrics, the indicators, so that your folks really understand what success looks like. And lastly, set up checkpoints. The frequency of the checkpoints really depends on the volunteer and the level of trust that has been established. And these really are these coaching moments. They're informal catch-ups in many of the cases, and not formal reviews. There are times for formal reviews, but ensuring that a volunteer has the opportunity to really talk and check in with staff and oversight regularly is crucial. So lastly, I want to highlight, because it's just too easy to forget this in the process, and really it wasn't even specifically mentioned in any of the chat elements either, but I think we all know this, and it's so crucial that we keep this focus in our organizations to be empowering. There needs to be time for reflection and appreciation. Empowering environments are learning environments where people expect success, yet know that they can learn from failures and mistakes. To be true learning environments, groups need to reflect on their successes, to be able to answer questions like, why did this go well? What did we do together that made this happen and succeed? How can we ensure that we're going to work well together in the future? And empowering managers ask a lot of questions, creating opportunities to build trust and confidence, and celebrating intentionally, consistently, in formal and informal ways the involvement, the participation, the support of those volunteers. So I hope those action steps or those outlines will give you some things to reflect on and consider, and love to hear some of your questions.
Hey, Brian, this is Larissa. Thanks so much for sharing such wonderful information and sharing your story, telling us about the Freedom Cafe, and really helping to shed more light on how to create that culture of empowerment that can really drive organizations to meet their missions in even more exciting and effective ways. So we have got a couple of questions. I'm going to dive right in. We got a couple of questions around how can folks support volunteers to be empowered, to sort of accept empowerment when maybe they're not feeling that confidence or they're feeling timid. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, certainly. It's a great question, and I think a couple of things. First, the environment of encouragement, the ability to help someone access a role in which they feel like themselves and they feel like they know what they're doing is the first step. And then to ensure that people have those clear resources and the criteria for success. Confidence will grow for an individual as they achieve success and as they access those resources and accomplish something and then feel good about it celebrate that with the team. Of course, we all understand that there are individuals who are, inherently self-esteem is lower, and volunteering, I think finding a way to access a role that brings your strength is something that can help move someone forward. It's certainly not the only kind of support that an individual will need, but again, accessing a role that the person feels most confident in their abilities, that they have the resources and tools that they need, that they have the support of their team members to accomplish it, the encouragement from their supervisors, and celebrating success together. It was really a great way to help move someone forward into greater confidence.
Thanks so much, Bryan. We are going to share a few of the remaining questions with you, but we are running a little short on time. But I wanted to give you an opportunity. Did you have any last words to share with us today?
I'm just reading through some of those questions. I feel like I've said things that I'm encouraged to share with you, and I just hope that each of you takes the sense of empowerment that you have and creates a culture in your organization to allow other people to truly get involved and expand the impact that you have in our state, in our region, and give that power away in intentional and thoughtful ways that will cultivate success by your whole team.
Thank you so much, Bryan. I do want to echo the conference committee's gratitude for your joining us, for your work with the Freedom Cafe, and for sharing so openly your experience and insights with us this morning. Wonderful to have you, and really appreciate all of the work that you do in New Hampshire and globally. And now I see that our governor has joined us, and I'd love to invite him to share some words with all of you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Gretchen. Good to have everyone join us today. I know it's a little weird, obviously, everyone being virtual, but I think the importance and the call to action is it really drives home now more than ever. As we all know, there's a lot of need out there. There's a lot of opportunity out there. All the different volunteer and service organizations that volunteer in New Hampshire and other organizations across the entire New England region have really stepped up in those opportunities. There's that need. So it's a workforce need. It's about getting people to understand where those opportunities are. It's about getting some of the young people that are right now might not have summer jobs, or that are kind of in that inflection point in their lives that say, look, where can I donate and dedicate my time, not for just a day or a week, that's fine, but sometimes for longer periods, whether it be into months or years or whatever it is, and really finding, allowing individuals to find their path of service. It's so important. And as we always talk about here in New Hampshire, we do it really, really well, really well. We've really set a gold standard, partially because we're so connected to our communities. We're so connected to what happens at a localized level. I've always seen the role of the state government just providing that opportunity from a top-down standpoint, whether it's through funding or through calls to action. Obviously, the COVID stuff is definitely a bit different, and we're really pushing a COVID-19 call to service, a service year workforce, if you will, that focuses in a variety of different areas that will have funding attached to it. The Community Care Corps, the Service and Learn Fellowship programs, which, kind of expanding those opportunities, but having kind of a COVID-driven Service and Learn Fellowship program. That's a new request that we're pushing forward. And I think that what the message I try to drive across is, we know what's working in our world, that service organization that we traditionally work with, or that we know that's happening in our community. But I think it's incumbent upon us to really stretch ourselves so that we can be promoters, right? Promoters for that opportunity, that the bridges, if you will, and the gateways for other folks who want to do something. COVID has provided this real weird opportunity that no one expected 5 or 6 months ago. It's been very hard, a lot of anxiety, You've had people that have lost their jobs, people that are facing a lot of economic hardship in their homes, people that have a lot of physical health and public health harm, insecurity, and about what's going to happen with themselves and their families and how is COVID going to affect them. And that has made people kind of reevaluate a little bit where they're going on their path in life. And that's what Volunteer New Hampshire is all about. That's what these service organizations are all about, finding something that can be a new path for you, a new path to find your service, whatever it might be. And so whatever we can do to keep promoting that on our individual, from a state level, from a community level, it's so important. And also identifying other areas of need. There's a lot of new areas of need that have really sprung up and that will likely be with us for some time. And it's not just the traditional programs that we have, but there's new programs that we are going to have to, I think, create and focus on, given this real kind of transition that we're in. So it's all opportunity. It really is. It's a tough time. We know that, but we want to see it as opportunity and drive forward on it. And having all of you folks that are out there, all the boots on the ground that are already on the front lines of these things, being that army of promotion for us, I think is going to be a very, very powerful thing. Really engaging with high school and university students is another big mission of mine, and I think ours at the executive level. And again, finding that opportunity for them, not just, if they're from out of state, not just back home, but showing them what we have here, right? Allowing them to experience new opportunities that they might not have envisioned here in New Hampshire, so that we can kind of retain that workforce, retain that skill set, that energy, and that drive with some of the young men and women in the state that can kind of carry that legacy on for the next generation. And the amazing thing about this up and coming generation, whether you want to call it the millennials or the Gen Zs or whatever they're calling themselves now, they are service oriented. They are community oriented. They are activated. I don't want to call them activists, but they are activated to do good and to do something that is meaningful in their lives. And that's, I think, where bridging that gap becomes a lot easier. We're not trying to sell something that doesn't want to be bought. They want that opportunity. They want those doors open for them right now. And that's something, and we need those services to be provided. And that's just, I think, where we can be that bridge and drive forward. So again, just want to thank everyone all the way from Washington at the AmeriCorps level, all the way on down to those tiny organizations in some of our smaller towns. We're a state with a lot of tiny little towns in it, and a lot of tiny little service organizations that are out there that are just doing some really, really good stuff. So for everyone that's on the front lines, we cannot thank you enough. You've set an awesome standard. Keep making New Hampshire that gold standard, if you will, and allowing those opportunities to come to fruition. So Gretchen, you guys keep knocking it out of the park. And we're going to be here for you. Whatever you guys need, short-term, long-term, whatever it might be, you just let us know, and we're going to be here for you. But keep up the great work. We couldn't be prouder.
Thank you so much, Governor Sununu. Also, thank you to everyone who's joined us for this opening session and for the remainder of the 11 sessions. I just have a few things to share with all of you with respect to the conference, and just an opportunity to help us recognize exceptional service in New Hampshire communities. You can also submit an intent to nominate form for the 2020 Spirit of New Hampshire Awards. This is your opportunity to recognize an outstanding volunteer group of volunteers or an organization that champions volunteerism. We're especially interested to hear about volunteers and volunteer programs that sprang into action in response to COVID-19 related community needs. And just to be clear, filling out this quick form does not count as nominating. So with filling this out, that's not an official nomination. And we will reach out to you once we begin officially accepting nominations so that you can complete yours. You may also noticed that the Governor's Outstanding Volunteer Manager of the Year Award is missing from this year's conference. This year, we've extended the nomination period to align with the Spirit of New Hampshire Awards. So there's still time to get your nominations in, and you can visit volunteernewhampshire.org to learn more about that. And finally, please remember to use the hashtags NHGovConf 2020 and NH Spirit of Service, and tag Volunteer New Hampshire if you're posting about the conference on social media. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful day.